They called it peace, signed on crystal tablets, broadcasted to every corner of the galaxy. Humans and the Graviks, finally ending centuries of hostility. The media painted it like the birth of a new era. But I never bought it. Not for a second. You don't shake hands with a species that once used your children as war trophies. I was on the front line during the siege of Virelium. I saw the way Gravik deathhounds tore through civilian colonies, how their bioweapons dissolved bone before skin. I watched men scream without vocal cords as their bodies crumbled from the inside. And when the treaty came, they expected us to forget. They called it the Unity Accord. Sounded poetic. But to those of us who buried too many brothers and too many good friends, it was just a long pause before the next war. And we were right. 3 months ago, the Graviks attacked human outpost Fort Lenkar. No warning, no negotiation, just vaporized it. 2,000 souls gone in under 6 minutes. Among the dead? My son, he was 17, a comms tech, never held a rifle in his life. The Alliance, as usual, issued formal condemnations. Words, more words. Hollow, spineless, pitiful words. But this time, they sent me. My name is Dorian Harlan, Human Diplomatic Executor. In simpler terms, the last face you see before Earth decides you're not worth talking to anymore. I don't do peace treaties. I end them. The Graviks summoned me to their high chamber on Vurkes Prime. Their royal city, sharp towers like jagged spears piercing their sulfuric skies. The air always smelled of burning metal, even with filters. I landed with 2 guards, unarmed by protocol. Didn't matter. I didn't come here to start a war. I came to finish what they started. Their High Warden, Ixthral, met me on the ceremonial bridge. 8 feet of muscle wrapped in organic armor that squirmed slightly as he breathed, eyes black as voids. He sneered with all 10 of his mouth tendrils. You bring more threats, human? Or just your fragile pride? I didn't flinch. I bring final terms. His snarl deepened. The guards at his side gripped their plasma staves tighter. I could feel the tension in the air shift like a storm was about to break. We agreed, he hissed. We already gave peace. You took it back, I said coldly, when you erased Fort Lenkar. He waved a claw. A misunderstanding. A rogue fleet. It is regrettable. That word, regrettable, the same word they used after the Zarnel massacre, after the Corran flood, after Virelium. I reached into my coat and pulled out the crystal data scroll. Not a weapon, just paper to them. But it held everything. The terms, I said, non-negotiable, immediate withdrawal from all human border territories, reparations for the fort, and assigned surrender of 12 outer colonies to Earth Command. Laughter echoed across the bridge, raspy, guttural alien mockery. Ixthral leaned in. You come here without weapons, with impossible demands and expect obedience? I locked eyes with him. No, I expect extinction. For a second, silence. Then my wrist implant buzzed. Right on time. Every orbital cannon Earth had pointed at Vurkes Prime was now fully armed and locked. No delays, no warnings. One command from me and this planet would be ash. I lifted my wrist slowly. Let him see the glow. I'm not a diplomat, I said. Not anymore. I'm what comes after diplomacy dies. Ixthral's smirk faded. And for the first time since the war began, a Gravik looked afraid. The air thickened around us as the Gravik High Warden stared at my wrist. That little implant, no bigger than a coin, glowed with Earth Command's authorization code, red for armed, blinking for decision ready. His eyes, like obsidian pools, scanned me up and down. I could feel the weight of every Gravik soldier posted on those walls behind him, 10, 20, maybe more hidden in shadows. They were ready to kill me, probably eager to. But for the first time in centuries, they didn't move. because suddenly, the human standing before them wasn't just a man. I was judgment. I was the loaded gun humanity had spent generations building, and I was here to settle the final score. "You won't do it," Ixthral said. His voice was quieter now, lower, still full of venom, but touched with just a drop of uncertainty. That's how it always starts. I stepped closer. "You think we won't sacrifice one diplomat to send a message?" I asked. "You think Earth won't turn this rock into a crater if it means no more Gravik threats in 50 years? You would destroy our capital for one outpost?" 2,000 humans weren't an outpost. That was a town. A home, families. My son. His silence told me he hadn't known that detail. Maybe it didn't matter to him. But it mattered to me. I let the pain show in my voice. Not weakness, no. Just enough rage to let him know how close I was to giving the word. "My people don't need permission to retaliate anymore," I said. "We gave peace. You pissed on it. So now I'm the last man who gives a damn about whether this ends with words or fire." The High Warden turned, gesturing sharply to one of his guards. A slithering thing wearing a translator rig limped forward, hissing in broken trade tongue. "High Warden offers negotiation, council, host reception." "Tell him to shut it," I snapped. The guard flinched back. Ixthral waved him off, baring his teeth. "You came alone," he said. "You threaten us with extinction, but I see no fleet." "You don't need to see it," I said, holding up my wrist. "You only need to know I'm here because Earth already passed the verdict. This is your chance to take the deal. If you refuse, the next man through that door will speak with orbital fire." The wind howled across the bridge. The sulfur stung my lungs even through the filter. I didn't blink. Ixthral stared long and hard, and then slowly turned to walk down the length of the bridge. I followed. His gait was slower now, less triumphant, more calculating. Somewhere behind those inky eyes, I knew he was running equations. Risk, loss, the taste of arrogance turning to ash. We entered the chamber, the great black stone court, massive hall of living stone that pulsed faintly with alien nerve light. The Gravik considered it sacred. I considered it a throne room built over graves. A long, rough table awaited us, not built for comfort, just dominance. 6 other Gravik nobles sat across from me, each draped in organic armor, each armed, a breach of our terms. I didn't comment. I didn't care. If they moved, I'd vaporize the planet and let God sort the bones. Ixthral took his seat at the end. I remained standing. "I want it said," he began, "that this human represents the final stance of Earth Command." "I speak for the Terran Corps," I replied, "and the Terran Corps no longer recognizes this treaty as binding, not after what you did at Lenkar. The incident was unauthorized." I slammed the scroll onto the table, hard enough to make one of the Gravik flinch. "We tracked the fleet. It launched from your own core shipyards. The general who authorized it still holds command in your Outer Rim Council. Don't insult us with unauthorized. You gave the order, or you let it happen. Either way, that's betrayal." One of the nobles growled. "You do not speak to the High Warden like this, human." "Funny," I said, locking eyes with him. "Because 5 minutes ago I was deciding whether to erase your planet." He stood. I didn't. My silence was louder than his threat. Ixthral raised a hand. "Enough. Let him speak." The noble sat, but not before glaring daggers at me. "Good. Let him hate me. Better than underestimating me." I unrolled the scroll and slid it forward. "Terms. Final ones. No appeals, no committees. You either accept or we hit your colonies next." He skimmed the document, his eyes flicking line to line. "You demand 12 worlds," he said. "Reparations. Compensation for the broken treaty. You demand the dissolution of the Gravik expansion fleet. Because you broke the treaty with military force. No more warships means no more excuses. You want an open human base within our borders. To ensure compliance, A non-negotiable checkpoint. We're done trusting promises. Ixthral leaned back. His claws tapped the table slowly, deliberately. "You're not offering peace," he said. "You're dictating surrender." I nodded. "Exactly." He stood. "Then I refuse." I raised my wrist. The chamber gasped. All of them, even the guards. One motion away from annihilation. I could see it in their alien expressions. The sudden fear of knowing they weren't in control anymore. That for once, the weak species they mocked had grown teeth. "I'm not bluffing," I said. "If I die in this room, your cities die with me. That's not drama, that's physics." One of the nobles muttered, "Cowards hide behind bombs." "Tell that to the ashes of Lenkar." Ixthral was quiet now. His arrogance had cracked. Maybe it was the death toll from our last retaliation. The melting of half his border fleet in retaliation strikes. Maybe it was the knowledge that Earth had played nice for too long. "I could order your execution?" he said slowly. "You could. But by the time my body hits the floor, my ship transmits the fire code. Your son will be the last thing you see." He stared hard at me. "Why do you come alone, knowing this?" "Because I wanted to look you in the eye," I said, voice hard. "I wanted you to know this isn't a fleet command. It's personal. You killed my son. You took him in his sleep. So now I'm here to collect the debt." For once, the room was silent. Even the arrogant one didn't speak. I let that silence hang. Let them feel it. Let them sit in the space between civilization and annihilation. Ixthral finally reached down, picked up the scroll again. "You leave us no choice." "There was always a choice," I said. "You just made the wrong one." He turned to the other nobles. They nodded. Slowly, grudgingly, but they nodded. They knew. This wasn't war. This was survival. He raised his claw and pressed it to the bottom of the scroll. A deep burn etched into the crystal, a Gravik signature. "Then we accept," he growled. I nodded once. "Good." I turned to leave. But before I did, I stopped at the chamber door. "One more thing," I said without looking back. "The general who authorized Lenkar. Turn him over." Silence. Ixthral didn't move. "If you don't," I added, "the fire code stays armed." There was a beat. Then Ixthral spoke, low and bitter. "He will be delivered to you." I walked out without another word. As I stepped back onto the landing pad, my guards rushed to meet me. "Sir, you were in there for—" "We got it," I said. "They signed." "Do we stand down the cannons?" I paused, then looked to the sky, that rust-red sky they called holy. "No," I said. "Keep them armed. I want them to remember what mercy costs." The shuttle door closed behind me. I didn't look back. The shuttle broke atmosphere without resistance. No Gravik patrols, no intercept signals, not even the usual shadowing cruiser from their home fleet. They were too busy licking their wounds and replaying what had just happened in that chamber. That's the thing with monsters. When you scare them bad enough, they stop growling. But my hands didn't stop shaking. I sat stiff in my seat, my jaw clenched hard enough to ache. The pressure from the cabin rising wasn't what made me sweat. It was the silence in my head. The same silence that crept in ever since Lenkar. That feeling that something was missing. No, someone. The echo of a voice I hadn't heard in 6 months. My son. His name was Levi. Funny how I couldn't say it out loud, even now. He wasn't a soldier. He wanted to be a writer. Said fighting was for men who'd run out of ideas. I used to argue with him about that, back when I still believed wars could be avoided if people just talked loud enough. That was before I saw a peaceful town reduced to carbon mist because some alien general wanted to flex muscle. That was before I stood on a bridge and stared death in the face while holding the button that could erase a world. Levi never wanted war. but he sure as hell deserved justice. And now that I had it, or at least a signature promising it, I didn't feel satisfied. I felt hollow. Like a black hole had carved itself into my chest the day they told me he died, and every so-called victory just fed it more silence. The ship rocked gently as we docked with the Ark Vindicator, my diplomatic cruiser. Commander Renner greeted me with a nod. Always by the book. Ex-military, now security chief for the diplomatic corps. He was one of the few men who didn't flinch when things got bloody, which made him dangerous but dependable. "You're back earlier than expected," he said, "and alive." "They signed," I said simply. His eyes narrowed. "That easy?" I stepped past him. "Nothing about this was easy." He followed, boots echoing down the steel corridor. "We tracked their orbital fleet movements. Half their outer defense ships have gone dark. Seems they're standing down. They're scared. They should be." I entered the main comm room. Clean, sterile, too sterile. I plugged my wrist implant into the console and began the upload of the new Accord. Renner leaned against the doorframe. "What now?" I didn't look at him. "Now we hold them accountable. Make sure they follow every line. No wiggle room, no loopholes. And if they don't?" I looked up then, finally meeting his eyes. "Then we stop asking nicely." He nodded once, slowly, a pause. "Dorian," he said, voice lower. "This isn't over, is it?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, no, it wasn't. Not even close. 2 hours later, Earth Command transmitted a reply. Accepted terms binding. Oversight, protocol initiated. That meant surveillance drones would orbit Gravik colonies. Human agents would embed in their council chambers. Every trade route, every military outpost, every political conversation, monitored, watched. It was war without bombs, occupation without bloodshed. They deserved worse. But something was wrong. Something kept gnawing at me. Back in my quarters, I reviewed the surveillance data we had on Fort Lenkar again. Even though I'd seen it a dozen times, even though I knew every second of it by heart. My fingers hovered over the pause button when the attack started. Gravik ships didn't just bombard from orbit, they targeted communications, power nodes, water filtration, precision, purpose. That wasn't rogue behavior, that was military protocol. And yet, the footage showed something I hadn't noticed before. A strange distortion in the upper atmosphere, seconds before impact, like a ripple. I enhanced the frame, pulled up gravitational readings. Anomaly, micro-warp spike, not Gravik tech. Too smooth. I ran the signature against our own archives, and that's when I found it. The energy trace matched a human stealth array, one only used by Black Ops recon units, the kind that weren't supposed to exist anymore. I sat back, breath catching in my throat. What the hell is this? Had we known the attack was coming? No way. We wouldn't let 2,000 people die for political leverage. We wouldn't sacrifice a civilian outpost just to get leverage for total control of the treaty. Would we? The thought made my stomach twist. Just then, a ping. Encrypted transmission, level 9 access only, personal. I opened it. No sender listed. Just a simple message. You got what you came for. Now stop digging. The console went black. All logs erased. Access denied. I stood up so fast the chair toppled. They knew I saw it, whoever they were. I hit the emergency line to Earth Command. Nothing. Firewall. I tried Commander Renner's communication, scrambled. Someone was cutting me off, shutting me down. This wasn't just diplomacy anymore. It was a cover-up. I stormed into the bridge. Renner, lock external comms. Full security lockdown. No one leaves this ship. He blinked. What's going on? We're being silenced. Someone inside Earth Command is hiding the truth about Lenkar. He looked confused, then cautious. You sure? I saw it. The attack wasn't just Gravik. Someone else was there. Someone human. And now they're trying to bury it. He nodded slowly. Okay, I trust you. What now? We isolate. We get proof. And if we can't trust command, we take it to the Terran public. His face changed then, just slightly, but enough. A flicker of regret? I stepped back. Renner! He didn't move. You son of a... I reached for my sidearm, but he moved first. A stun round hit my chest. Pain. Nerve shock. I dropped hard, twitching as the world tilted sideways. Through the haze, I saw him kneel beside me. I didn't want it this way, Dorian, he said quietly. But you were never meant to see that file. You knew. He nodded. We let Lenkar fall. The High Council wanted full control of the treaty. They needed a moral outrage, and you... He looked at me like I was something pitiful. You were perfect, grieving father, loyal patriot, uncompromising. They knew you'd play your part with conviction. My jaw locked. Rage surged through me, but I couldn't move. My muscles weren't mine anymore. They gave you the title Diplomatic Executor to make you feel powerful, but you were always just the hammer. You were the last tool in their box. And now that you've done your job... He stood. They don't need you anymore. Darkness crawled in from the edges of my vision. I heard him issue orders. Medical bay. Restrain him. No outside contact. Tell the crew it's a nervous collapse. And prep a course back to Sewell. Then nothing. Just silence again. Not even my son's voice this time. Only betrayal. Pain came back first. A slow-burning fire at the base of my skull. Like someone had driven a nail between my vertebrae and left it there, pulsing with every heartbeat. Then came the cold. The kind that creeps up your spine when the air's too recycled, and the silence is too perfect. A silence designed to dull thought, to numb reaction. I opened my eyes. Metal ceiling. Blank. No lights, just a faint glow panel hidden in the seams. The hum of ship systems was gone. Even the subtle gravity shift. Absent. I was in isolation. I tried moving, but my wrists were magnet-locked to the reclined medical bed. My ankles, too. No monitors hooked into me, no diagnostics. That meant one thing. They weren't treating me, just holding me. Prisoner. Renner. That bastard. I kept seeing his face, calm, unreadable, like this was just another routine lockdown. He knew, all along. He knew Levi was bait, that Fort Lenkar was a pawn. And I was the fool they sharpened into a weapon and then aimed. I tugged once, hard, against the restraints. Nothing. Solid magnet clamps, old military style, non-lethal but impossible to break without authorization. I looked around. Single room. Smooth walls, no seams, just one reinforced door with a retinal scanner. No windows, no interfaces. They wanted me quiet, controlled, erased. My throat burned when I tried to speak. I swallowed. Dry as sand. Computer, I croaked. No answer. Dorian Harlan, diplomatic clearance, override code, Gamma 9 Terra. Nothing. Even my own damn ship wouldn't recognize me now. That's when it hit me. They'd ghosted my identity. My implant was probably inactive. My diplomatic tags, scrubbed. As far as Earth Command was concerned, I didn't exist anymore. But I wasn't going out like this. No, not in a quiet room. Not with a lie covering my son's death like a rug hiding bloodstains. I laid still for a moment, slowing my breath, thinking. The bed I was strapped to, standard med frame, modular. These ships were built for triage, which meant under the bed was a removable med tray for surgical tools in emergencies, if they didn't strip it. I exhaled slowly and strained my fingers downward. Just barely. There. I felt a groove. Plastic. I shoved my hand as far down as the wrist lock would allow and pried it loose. Took minutes. Sweat gathered at my temple. My arm burned from the angle. Then, finally, click. A flat tool, scalpel, old model, foldable, Probably missed in inventory. Thank you, sloppy med tech. I flipped it open with trembling fingers, held it backward, and began slicing toward the bed seam that housed the magnetic lock on my right wrist. A few years back, I'd been briefed on these restraint models. They responded to pulse conductivity, interfere with the connection, and the magnetic signature fails. The scalpel might just be enough. Sparks flickered once. Then the clamp hissed open. Left hand next. Harder. Angled wrong. But adrenaline is a hell of a thing when you're trying to escape the grave someone else buried you in. 15 minutes later, I was free. Arms shaking, ankles raw from the tension, but I stood, wobbled, breathed, focused. I opened the wall cabinet. Empty. No clothes, no weapons. I was still in my thermal med gown, flimsy and cold. But I wasn't staying in it long. I approached the door. No keypad, just a scanner. I stepped close. It beeped red. Denied. Then I grinned. Renner forgot one thing. I wasn't just a diplomat. Before the suits, I served in Ghost Division. Black Ops 20 years ago. That retinal scanner wasn't new. It had a flaw. One it shared with every Class 4 ship built before year 2900. I pressed my forehead to the scanner, hard, held my breath, and blinked 3 times in rapid succession. Beep. Yellow. Beep. Green. The lock hissed open. I slipped out like a shadow. The hall outside was dim, unmanned. Security protocol had rerouted guards to the outer decks during ship transit. Good. I needed time. I ducked into the first junction and located the maintenance crawl space. Crawled in. Every vent, every bolt, every path of this ship. I knew it. I helped design this model 10 years ago for the Corps. Diplomatic cruisers were meant for intimidation, not war. That meant weak internal defenses. And where there's a weakness, there's a way out. I reached Deck 3. Command sub-access. From the grate, I saw him, Renner, standing by the nav table, issuing soft orders. Prep gravity slipstream. Erase medical logs. Transmit false medical report to Earth Command in 20 minutes. The crew didn't question him. Why would they? He was command. I waited until he moved out of frame, slid out of the vent like breath, crept behind the server cabinet. One of the guards was there, back turned, rifle slung low, lazy. I moved fast, hand over his mouth, arm tight around his throat, dragged him backward. 20 seconds. He was out cold. I pulled his pulse pistol, clipped it to my belt, then took his uniform. Didn't fit well. Too tight around the shoulders, but good enough. I slipped into the hallway and headed for secure comms. 3 corridors down. Past 2 more guards. Nodded. They nodded back. Renner hadn't broadcast my escape. He was trying to handle it quietly, more plausible deniability. He'd underestimated me again. The secure comms room was empty. I locked the door behind me, activated the console. Authorization, Black Ghost Protocol, Agent ID, Harlan Dorian. Confirm identity. The system paused, then buzzed. Ghost Division override accepted. I exhaled. That override had been dormant for 15 years. Never thought I'd need it again. I keyed in a direct line to someone I trusted, the only person in the galaxy who owed me enough to listen. Colonel Nash. He picked up after 2 rings. Disheveled. Graying. One eye replaced with synthetic. Voice hard as ever. Dorian, Jesus, they said you were dead. I should be. You were on the Gravik mission. I was the mission, I spat. But it was a setup. Lenkar was bait. Earth Command let them hit it to justify full control of the treaty. He was silent. Then, you're sure? I uploaded the footage. The gravity ripple. The stealth signature. He studied it. Whistled. Black tech array, human, no question. I need extraction, I said. They'll kill me before I reach Earth. Renner's in on it. I'll send a silent runner. 6 hours out. Get to the starboard pod bay. Don't trust anyone. The line cut. I stood there, pulse hammering. Then the door beeped. Override from the bridge. My time was up. I sprinted through the corridors, ducking through the side shafts. Red alarms started to flare. Unauthorized personnel alert. My face would be everywhere now, but I moved like I used to. A ghost. By the time Renner's men found the comm room, I was already gone, and the only thing left was a burned data chip and a message scrawled into the wall. You used me. Now I use you. I ran like hell. Every corridor I crossed was another second bought before Renner's men closed the net. The Ark Vindicator wasn't a battleship, but it was big enough to lose a man in for maybe 3 minutes. After that, no second chances. I ducked through the port side maintenance shaft, turned left into a dark cargo hold, and dropped from the catwalk to the lower deck. My knees flared with pain, but I didn't stop. 6 hours. That's how long Nash said his runner ship would take to reach me. 6 hours might as well have been 6 years. Renner would have every inch of this cruiser locked down in 20 minutes, maybe less. I needed to disappear, not just from view, but from the system. I reached the starboard pod bay. 4 emergency evac pods sat in their cradles, untouched, lights blinking green. I slid behind a service terminal, accessed the core, and began rewriting the pod's destination parameters. Couldn't let them trace me to the runner Nash sent. Had to fake a misfire, a pod lost in deep drift. I set the course for a nearby dead zone, asteroid sector 9B, where even scanners choked on magnetic interference. It was a suicide path, or it would look like one. Then I triggered a silent override, popped the pod's outer hatch, and slipped inside. The seal hissed. I hit launch. Within seconds, the pod blasted from the cruiser's belly like a bullet into black space. Alarms probably sounded the second I launched. Didn't matter. They'd think I was panicking, making a run without support. They'd underestimate again. Good. Let them think I was desperate. Let them think I was running scared. I wasn't running. I was baiting. The pod tumbled through space in silence. No propulsion, just momentum. My oxygen was limited, temperature barely stable. But I'd been through worse in the early Ghost Division days. Week-long blackouts in cryopods, buried under lunar dust, just to sneak past enemy radar. I sat back, listening to my own breath. Every inhale felt heavier now, the weight of truth pressing down. My government, my command, had orchestrated the murder of 2,000 humans. My son. All so they could write their own rules into a treaty. Not a diplomatic negotiation, a hostile takeover dressed in formal language. And I was the puppet they paraded in front of the Gravics to seal the con. They never intended to keep the treaty. They wanted to own it. Own the Gravics. Own every race they signed peace with. Turn diplomacy into domination. The kind that didn't need fleets or bombs. Just quiet deals, forced surrender, and men like me selling it with righteous rage. I laughed, bitter, cracked. They chose me because they knew I'd feel it, that I'd grieve loud enough, punch hard enough, demand vengeance deep enough, that my pain would look real. Because it was real, and that's what made me dangerous now. The pod beeped. Incoming signal, unregistered. Approaching you from 30 kilometers, Dorian. Engage beacon. Nash's voice. No ceremony. I flipped the manual beacon, hidden in a sub-panel. A faint blue glow blinked through the pod's port side. A few minutes later, a sleek, matte black shape emerged from the darkness. The Revenant. Nash's personal skimmer. A legend among ghosts, no registration, no tail signature. Off the books and invisible. The docking latch clamped onto the pod with a soft hiss. I opened the hatch and pulled myself through. The interior was pure shadow. Stripped metal, red lights, and old scars on every panel. Nash stood near the pilot chair. No smile, just a nod. "You look like hell," he muttered. "Feel worse?" He handed me a thermal jacket. I pulled it on. "Crew?" "Just me," he said. "Didn't want chatter?" "Smart." We sat in silence for a moment. Then I turned to him. "You knew, didn't you?" Nash stared out the viewport. "Not the whole plan. Just whispers, rumors, Black Op Council projects, disinformation webs. When I saw your face on the treaty broadcast, I knew they were burning you." "They used my son." His jaw clenched. "I know." I leaned forward. "So tell me, who's behind it?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened a compartment under the console and pulled out a chip. Project title was Pax Ultima. Officially, it doesn't exist, but the file lists 26 High Council names, most military, a few civilian, and one you're not going to like. He handed me the chip. The name that stood out burned brighter than the others. High Executor Marin Daller. My old mentor. My commanding officer. The one who pulled me from a crater on Taros 5 and handed me my first diplomatic badge. I swallowed bile. "He gave the order?" I asked, voice flat. "More than that," Nash said. "He built the plan. Lenkar was just the first phase. The next targets are still redacted, but I've seen enough to know what's coming." "What?" "Full-spectrum control of alien treaty systems. Not peace. Possession. Daller believes diplomacy failed humanity a century ago. He thinks war was never our weakness. Mercy was." My hands curled into fists. "This isn't just about Lenkar anymore," I said. "No," Nash agreed. "It's about what comes next, and how you're going to stop it." I looked at him. "You're sure I still can?" He smiled, tired. "You're the only one who can. You have the voice, the name, the reputation, the grief." He leaned closer. "They made you a symbol, Dorian. Now burn them with it." The next 5 hours were a blur. We scrubbed our data trail, blew the pod remotely, created a false biosignature. As far as Earth Command knew, I was floating in deep space, frozen and dead. Good. That bought me time. Nash and I made our way to a fringe colony. Keldor 3, an old mining world now abandoned by the Corps, but still home to smugglers, broken ex-soldiers, and men who knew how to disappear. We landed in the dead of night. Cold dust swirled in gusts around our boots. No lights, just the faint hum of life buried beneath ground level. The colony wasn't listed on any modern chart. The kind of place no bureaucrat dared touch, because it reminded them of how little control they actually had. We entered the old barracks, passing through broken steel doors and halls lit by battery lanterns. A man stepped from the shadows. Broad shoulders, face like a shattered map. One eye was cybernetic, the other full of old war rage. Bren Alric, former resistance captain, hadn't sworn allegiance to anyone since Earth Command glassed his homeworld in the Saturn Rebellion. He didn't speak right away, just looked me over. "You're supposed to be dead," he finally said. "I'm working on that," I replied. He chuckled. "You come here to hide?" "No," I said. "I came here to start something." He raised an eyebrow. I stepped forward, pulled the chip from my jacket, and placed it on the table between us. "They lied about Lenkar, Earth Command, the Council, all of them. Prove it." I activated the display. Names, plans, signatures, the Pax Ultima directive. He read for 3 minutes in silence, then looked up. "Holy hell." "I want to broadcast it," I said. "All of it. Every name, every lie, to every neutral system, every colony. I want this truth so loud it can't be erased." He leaned back. "You're going to paint a target the size of Jupiter on your back." "I don't care." He studied me, then slowly nodded. "I'll get you what you need." By midnight, I was in the back room of a makeshift transmitter bunker. A satellite rig buzzed overhead, linking to black market relay beacons scattered across a dozen systems. Nash adjusted the mic. "You sure about this?" "They used my voice to lie," I said. "Now they'll hear what it really sounds like." He gave me the nod, and I began to speak. "They told me once that revolutions started with guns. They lied. They start with truth, spoken loud enough, raw enough, and in front of the right kind of broken people." I sat in a rusted chair in that cold transmitter bunker on Caldor 3, staring at the mic like it was a weapon. Because it was. The battered satellite rig above me hummed with an old rebel frequency. Core Echo 7, banned 20 years ago, but still bouncing off deep space repeaters Earth Command had long since forgotten. Nash gave me the nod. "You've got 6 minutes before they trace it." I adjusted the mic, the chill of steel against my fingertips grounding me. No script, no rehearsal, just grief, rage, and the truth boiling in my gut like acid. I hit record. "This is Dorian Harlan, Diplomatic Executor, Ghost Division, Earth Command Registry, 119-A6-Beta. I was declared dead 3 days ago. I'm not." A pause. Let that sink in. Fort Lenker wasn't an accident. It wasn't a rogue attack. It was bait. I watched the levels jump on the monitor as my voice traveled through space, piggybacking every old repeater, every outlaw comboy. Earth Command fed 2,000 human lives to the Graviks to force a surrender, to control the treaty, to turn peace into ownership. They used me, a grieving father, to sell their war in disguise. I looked up at Nash. He gave me a grim nod to keep going. "I've uploaded proof, not conspiracy, not guesswork. Names, signatures, Project Pax Ultima. They signed off on it, they built it. My son, Levi, was just collateral." I paused. Just a second. Just long enough to feel it all again. That silent rage. That hole. They thought I'd scream once and disappear, but now you hear me. All of you, every station, every freighter, every miner buried under rocks on the edge of human reach. You've seen the lies, you live under them, and now you know. Another beat. "I'm not asking for rebellion. I'm asking for truth. Spread this. Burn it into every net feed. And to those on the inside still wearing the badge, ask yourself what it's worth now." I leaned closer to the mic, my voice steel. "To Earth Command, I'm coming for you. Not to negotiate, not to beg. I'm coming to put names behind every corpse you buried under the word peace. You taught me how to lie with honor. Now I'll show you what it sounds like when a man tells the truth with vengeance." I hit stop. Nash slammed the upload button. The broadcast launched like wildfire, across old rebel channels, into pirate trader networks, even hijacking a couple of civilian feeds near the neutral rings. Illegal? Absolutely. Untraceable? Not quite. But fast enough. He looked over at me. "You just cracked the dam, Dorian. I hope it drowns them." We had less than 90 seconds before Earth Command's first ping. Then the comms board lit up. Overload, response pings coming in from all over the outer systems. Civilians, ex-military, even a few Gravik sympathizers. The file had gone viral, faster than even Nash expected. Then came the first response transmission. Audio only. Broken signal, static heavy. "This is Lieutenant Mares of the 8th Outer Patrol. Standing by for orders. Executor Harlan." Another. "This is ex-Captain Solis. I was in command when the Lenkar strike hit. We were told the delay in response was a systems glitch. Now I know it was a setup. I'm in, whatever you need." One more. A female voice, choked with emotion. "I lost my brother in Lenkar. They said it was unavoidable. I wanted to believe them. Thank you for telling the truth." I stared at the board, at the hundreds, now thousands, of data bursts pouring in. People weren't just listening. They were awakening. And Earth Command would hear every damn word of it. But fire always draws fire. The broadcast hadn't even cooled before Nash's proximity alert screamed red. "Incoming signal burst," he growled. "Multiple ships, no registry, coming in hot." "How many?" "4, maybe 5. Stealth chasers, Earth Command." They found us. I grabbed the pulse rifle we'd stolen from a derelict outpost last cycle and checked the charge. "We're not going to make it out, are we?" Nash gave me that hard, knowing look. "I'll buy you time." I froze. "No, we both go." He shook his head. "They don't want me. They want you. I'm already off the books. You're the name, the firebrand. If you die here, that broadcast gets buried under 1,000 denials. I'm not leaving you." He smirked. "I taught you how to run, remember? Time to graduate." Outside, the ground trembled. Dropships were landing. He slammed a datapad into my chest. "Rerouted a shuttle behind the ridge, old mining access tunnel, automated system. No pilot, but it'll fly." I took a step toward him, and he grabbed my shoulder. "You finish this," he said. "You burn their mask. Don't stop until every name on that chip is in the dirt." I clenched my jaw. "I will." The doors blew inward. Flash bangs, screaming boots, gunfire. Nash turned, raised his rifle, and roared down the hallway. I ran. The tunnels were pitch black and reeked of chemical fuel and ancient metal. My lungs burned as I pushed through, the rifle slung over my shoulder and the datapad clutched in my hand like a relic. Gunshots echoed behind me, close. I turned once, fired blind, and heard a scream. Not enough. They were swarming. I reached the shuttle bay, a makeshift launch pad built from salvage. The tiny craft crouched on its repulsors, one engine sputtering faintly. It looked like it would fall apart if I sneezed at it. I didn't care. I jumped in, slammed the hatch shut, and kicked the launch sequence. Behind me, the chamber door burst open. Muzzle flashes lit the air. A shot clipped the hull. Another burned through the rear stabilizer. But I was airborne before they could bring full fire. The shuttle climbed hard, rattling, whining, coughing black smoke. I gripped the controls with white knuckles, praying Nash's override held. The nav screen blinked red, then blue. Coordinates locked. Safe zone. Fossen Drift. An outlaw-controlled sector 5 jumps out. Dangerous, but too wild for Earth Command to pursue openly. I throttled up and punched through the upper atmosphere. Below, Caldor 3 burned. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't grieving, but because Nash didn't die for tears. He died for the truth. And now, truth had teeth. Over the next 12 hours, the galaxy bent sideways. The Terran core broadcast an emergency alert. Called me a rogue operative infected by alien sympathizers. Claimed the Lenkar broadcast was holographic forgery. Classic. But it didn't stick. Not this time. Too many people had already seen the file. Too many had lost someone at Lenkar. Too many remembered the promises Earth Command had broken before. Riots broke out in 2 core colonies. One Terran naval vessel, the Harrogate, mutinied mid-patrol. A Gravik colony council sent me a message. Now we understand. And we remember what real war feels like. I watched it all from the shadows, tracking, rerouting, staying ahead of their search grids. I became a ghost again. But this time, the whole galaxy could hear me. I was no longer a diplomat. I was no longer a father. I was no longer a soldier. I was the man who had nothing left to lose. And soon, I'd make sure Earth Command understood what that kind of man could really do. The Fossen Drift was the closest thing the galaxy had to a lawless graveyard with a pulse. No flags flew here. No empires claimed it. No treaties held sway. Just broken men, rusted ships, and shattered oaths drifting in a cloud of forgotten battles. Perfect place for a man like me. By the time I landed, I'd already changed appearance, shaved the beard, burnt the diplomatic seal from my jacket, and wiped my implant ID again. Didn't matter. Anyone looking for Dorian Harlan was chasing a ghost now, and ghosts didn't ask for permission. They took what they needed. I spent the first 3 days underground, tracking signals, relays, and whisper net chatter. The fallout from the Lenkar leak was bigger than I expected, bigger than anyone could control. 7 ships defected from the core fleet. 2 governors resigned, or disappeared. A full rebellion sparked on Corin 5, led by a man who had been a janitor in the Lenkar colony. Said he lost his daughter in the strike. Now he carried a rifle and led 1,000 angry settlers through the streets. I didn't reach out, didn't recruit, didn't organize, I just watched. Because my war wasn't with the people. It was with the ones who ordered them around like meat on a board. I wanted the heads of Earth Command, and I wanted them to know why before I took everything from them. And that started with Marin Dallor. Dallor hadn't gone underground. He didn't need to. He thought he was untouchable. Still sat in his high-rise tower on the Earth orbital ring, sipping from crystal glasses and issuing counter-broadcasts with that same smug, dead-eyed calm he always wore like a mask. The official story? That I'd suffered a psychological breakdown after Lenkar. That my broadcast was an unstable delusion built on grief. They paraded fake intel, forged flight logs, even dragged out some paid doctor in a white coat to claim I'd been on suicide watch before my diplomatic mission. Lies so thick they'd drown a weaker man. But all they did was sharpen the blade. I knew Dallor. I knew how he thought. He'd already be prepping for Pact's Ultima. Phase 2, turning the treaty's colonies into Earth-loyal economic zones, converting alien trust into Earth dominion. His version of peace was just slavery in a different uniform. He called it long stability. I called it murder in slow motion. So I planned. I tapped old contacts in the Fossen Drift, smugglers, mercs, ex-ghosts who owed me favors they thought they'd never have to repay. I called every debt, promised them one thing: freedom or fire. We assembled in silence, 3 small stealth craft, 6 men and women I could still trust, and one target. Earth Command's primary AI relay, Core Node 1, a satellite station in geosync above Earth's equatorial band. Minimal military presence, maximum data access. Crack that node, and I'd have every encrypted message Dallor had sent over the past decade. Orders, confirmations, kill lists, the proof I needed to finish him. We launched under cloak. The drift spat us out towards the Terran perimeter in less than 4 hours. Even now, they weren't expecting a hit. Not from me, not from anyone. Arrogance makes for sloppy defense. We breached the station's hull at 0200 standard, quiet, surgical. One of my team, Bell, tapped into the airlock override like it was child's play. We were inside before a single sensor blinked red. No alarms, no guards. Core Node 1 wasn't built for war, it was built for secrecy. I moved through those sterile halls like I belonged there. Part of me had once. I'd toured this station 5 years ago, shaking hands and smiling for propaganda vids. Peace through shared knowledge. That's what they called it. Now it was just the vault holding every skeleton Earth Command tried to bury. We reached the mainframe chamber. Massive, cold, lit only by the pulsing blue light of quantum cores stacked like steel spines against the far wall. Bell cracked the terminal. "I'm in," she said. "Pulling comm logs now." "Hurry," I said. "We've got 8 minutes before patrol sync." Then I heard it. A cough. I turned. Fast. An officer stood in the doorway, barely 20, eyes wide. Probably came down for routine logs. Wrong day. I crossed the room in 4 steps, hit him with the butt of my rifle before he could scream. He dropped, out cold. Belle kept working. Got it, she said. Pulling the deep archived council threads. Oh, damn. You were right. What? Daller's signature, direct comm approval on Lenkar, followed by confirmation of satellite scrubbing. She passed me the datapad. There it was. Confirmed strike, Fort Lenkar target, full civilian wipe, 93% population density rationale, strategic emotional leverage for Pax, Ultima initiation. Approved by Hidalor status, operational success. I stared at it. The final nail. Belle uploaded the files to 4 separate burner relays, bounced them off black satellites, and set them to auto-burst if she didn't ping every 6 hours. Fail-safe. We were getting smarter. I nodded once. Let's move! But the escape was never going to be easy. As we reached the drop port, the alarm blared. Security breach in Deck 6. Unauthorized data retrieval. All personnel, lockdown protocol 7. They knew. We ran. Red lights flooded the corridor. Boots hit metal. Drone guards deployed, sleek and fast. I turned mid-sprint and fired. Downed one, clipped another. My team followed, bullets and plasma lighting the halls. 2 didn't make it. Jax got hit in the throat. Fell without a sound. Reese bought us 10 seconds of breathing room by diving into a drone nest and detonating her belt. I didn't look back. Belle and I reached the evac chamber. Our ship, Scythe, hovered just outside, open hatch, engines ready. We leapt, fell 20 meters, landed hard. The ship rose as gunfire rattled the hull. We were out, but not clean. Back in the drift, I made the decision. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I wasn't going to whisper. I was going to show them. Daller, Earth Command, the whole damned Corps. I was going to sit in their house and read their sins back to them, line by line, in public, in front of the galaxy. So I hacked into the Corps public broadcast node, the one they used for press announcements and false peace speeches. I forced my way in using my own damn clearance, still hidden in one line of ghost code they'd missed. And then I went live. Video feed. My face. Scarred. Exhausted. Alive. This is Dorian Harlan. I now hold every encrypted file tied to Project Pax Ultima, including the signed death order for Fort Lenkar. The man who signed it sits in your highest council tower. Marin Dalor, the man who told you to trust peace, to trust them. I held up the datapad. This is his voice. This is his plan. This is your truth. I broadcasted every file, every name, every line of betrayal. It lasted 23 minutes, and by the time it ended, the Terran core was burning. The Terran core cracked faster than anyone expected. By the end of the first day after my live transmission, 15 planetary governors demanded hearings. 3 council members fled off-world. 2 committed suicide, one of them while on a public feed. The media tried to run interference at first, calling the files deep fakes, enemy propaganda, emotional manipulation by a grieving father. But it didn't stick. Not this time. Because the public wasn't the same. They'd seen too many lies, lost too many sons, watched too many necessary tragedies get swept under a carpet of executive orders and peace slogans. The rage had been simmering for decades. Lenkar just lit the fuse. Earth Command locked down within 48 hours. Martial law declared. Curfews, mass arrests, civil unrest in every major Terran city. The orbital fleet pulled back to guard the homeworld, leaving outer colonies exposed. And still, Daller didn't run. He stayed. Because cowards like him don't flee when things fall apart. They dig in deeper, behind steel and walls and men with guns, hoping they can ride out the storm. He didn't know I was the storm. We came in through the sewer lines, old maintenance shafts beneath the Earth Command Citadel, half buried in rubble and corrosion. My team had shrunk to just 3 by then. Bell, who could still out-hack anyone in the galaxy. Lynn's former core assassin, who decided killing me wasn't worth it once he read the Pact's Ultima files. And me. We moved quiet. No chatter. Just the rhythm of our boots in water and the occasional hiss of pressure vents. Above us, the surface was chaos. Riots had reached the Capitol Dome. Protesters surged against electric barricades, waving signs and makeshift banners painted with names of the dead: Levi Harlan, Sierra Dren, Mateo Yule. More than I could count. They marched not for me, but for every truth that had been buried with the same stone-faced press releases and falsified reports. We reached the substructure, a terminal chamber hidden beneath the command tower. Bell accessed the relay, reactivating an emergency lift that hadn't been used in 20 years. "It'll take us straight to the executive tier," she said. "Once we're in, they'll know." "I'm counting on it," I replied. Lynn's handed me the rifle. "Want me to take point?" I shook my head. "No, he's mine." He didn't argue. We entered the lift. As it rose, I didn't feel nerves, just focus, cold, sharp, surgical. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, stripped of mercy, stripped of politics. Just one man, one lie, one final answer. The lift doors opened with a soft chime. No alarms, no guards. That was the first sign something was wrong. I stepped out slowly, weapon up, eyes scanning the wide executive corridor. Marble floors, blue banners, digital artwork cycling propaganda slogans. Peace through unity. Humanity first. Disgusting. We moved toward the council chamber. The huge double doors loomed ahead, sealed by biometric scan. Bell cracked it in seconds. They opened with a low hiss. Inside sat 6 men. 5 were council members, pale, sweating, eyes darting, unarmed, powerless, huddled together like rats waiting for the last wall to fall. And at the center, still seated at the head table, was Marin Daller. He didn't rise, didn't flinch, just looked at me like I was late to a meeting. "So," he said calmly, "you finally made it." I stepped forward, pulse rifle trained directly at his chest. "You planned Lenkar?" "Yes. You killed 2,000 of our own. Sacrifices. Necessary ones. I wanted to shoot him right there, wanted to end it before he could speak another word. But something in me needed to hear it. All of it. Out loud. No more denials, no more fog. Why?" Daller laced his fingers together. "Because peace was never going to last. Not with the Graviks, not with anyone. So we forged a new model, controlled diplomacy, calculated subjugation. You've seen how effective it's been." "They signed because they were scared," I growled. He nodded. "Exactly. Fear is cleaner than trust, more efficient than hope." "You used my son." Daller looked up at me. His face was stone. "I used you," he said. "Your grief, your anger, your name. We needed a symbol, a man with a spine, a face people would follow. The betrayal had to look real." I shook my head. "You're insane." "No, I'm the architect of peace," he said. "You're just the weapon." I stared at him. The man I once called mentor, the man who had given me medals, speeches, handshakes, all while arranging death beneath the surface. I lowered the rifle. He smiled, thinking it meant something. And then I drew the sidearm from my belt and shot him in the kneecap. He screamed and dropped like a stone. Bell flinched. Lynn's didn't move. Daller writhed on the floor, blood spilling onto the polished white tiles. I walked over, knelt beside him. "You made one mistake," I said, voice low. "You thought grief made me blind." His teeth clenched in pain. "But grief makes you see everything," I continued. "It makes you remember every name, every voice, every lie, and it doesn't fade. It grows, it consumes, until the only thing left is what I am now. He tried to speak. A curse, maybe. I cut him off with another shot, this time to his shoulder. The other councilman begged, pleaded, offered information, deals, clemency. I ignored them. I turned to Belle. Transmit the chamber feed. Full spectrum, no filters. She nodded. Seconds later, every screen, every comm device across the Terran system showed the image of Marin Dalor, bleeding on the floor, stripped of power, exposed to the galaxy. I stood over him. This is the face of control, I said to the camera. This is the man who murdered our people and called it peace. I raised the pistol again. He's not the only one. I pulled the trigger. The feed cut out. It didn't end there. Earth Command fractured. Some units rebelled, others disbanded. The core government collapsed within the month. Trials were held. Real trials. I gave evidence, spoke names. Every surviving Pax Ultima conspirator was dragged into the light and made to face what they did. Some died before the verdicts. Cowards, poison and gunshots. The rest? Sent to exile colonies, stripped of rank, titles, and pride. And me? I didn't rebuild. Didn't run for office. Didn't take the medals they tried to pin on me. I left Earth after the last trial, took a freighter to the edge of colonized space, and disappeared into the noise. Some say I live in the ash rings now, working on a salvage ship. Others claim I joined the Gravics as an ambassador, rebuilding the treaty the right way. They say I still carry the old rifle, still wear Levi's dog tag around my neck. They're right, but I don't want statues. I don't want gratitude. I want them to remember that when peace is built on lies, it takes a man with nothing left to burn it down, and I burned it all. For him, for the truth.